In this session, Nita Cumello, Director of Wellbeing Global Large Law at Thomson Reuters, shares her intentional leadership story as a well-being trailblazer in the legal industry. Listen in on how Nita is taking her life purpose into uncharted territory. Hello, everyone. It's Axel here at the Intentional Leadership Podcast. Today I got a dear colleague, friend, and wellness warrior with us, Nita. Nita is joining us. Yes. Hello, Nita.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this platform. We are excited. I am excited to really just dive into your 20 plus year journey on this continued evolution from law school through an incredibly successful and recognized years of service at Thomson Reuters in the role of strategic executive and incredible master of all things. All the way to this trailblazing role you're taking on in the wellness world, really bringing wellness to an industry that maybe 5 years ago rolled their eyes at. That is pretty darn amazing. What do you have to say to all of that, lady?
Well, I mean, it certainly has been, I would say like an evolution, right? An evolution. It's been a journey, and it's kind of like not really even been a linear path. It's been this like ebb and flow. You're right. I have been with Thomson Reuters now for, almost, it'll be 20 years next year, which is kind of like crazy to think about. And I've held many different types of roles, sales and key client management roles, always kind of in environments that were pretty, high stress, constantly on the go types of jobs. So professionally, I guess I would say I always needed to be on. But I discovered really pretty early on in my life, and I'm sure you're probably going to want to go into this a bit, but I discovered pretty early on in my life, due to experiencing some fairly significant life events at a young age, specifically the loss of my mother, that my resilience, my ability to overcome kind of those inevitable challenges that life presents us, oftentimes, all the time, it was entirely dependent on my, mental, physical, spiritual health. And so to this end, and I learned that early on, I'm very grateful for that. I really prioritize and am very passionate about including all elements of that which contributes to, a very strong physical body, an empathetic, and compassionate mind and spirit, and, a meaningful sense of community and purpose. And I attribute that kind of commitment to that which has enabled me, frankly, to perform, personally and professionally, whether that's as, a mother, as an executive, as a friend, as a leader. It's kind of a daily practice and effort, and some days are easier than other days. But it's a commitment that I've made, and that, like I said, has been this evolving journey in my life and career.
I often marvel at this real truth that our misery becomes our mission if we choose it to be, right? If we use misery, which is oftentimes painful, oftentimes dark, oftentimes uncomfortable, and turn that though into our mission, it becomes so powerful, because it is a life change, not only for yourself, but really for everyone that walks into with you on your path. And that's just what I'm hearing here and feeling.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that that's something that, I think we all have, could do ourselves a favor, right? By taking a little bit of time to understand like your own personal why, like what is it that drives you, what makes you who you are, what inspires you, what is impactful to you, so that, like you said, and maybe that's something that was a miserable experience or even a wonderful experience, but that what is that thing that kind of gets that fire in your belly to go forth and conquer and do what you're going to do in this world and make the impact that you're going to make and a meaningful contribution that you're going to make.
Yeah.
I often will say, and I've said it many times in many discussions, like, I believe that if you're here on this earth, that you're important and that you have to figure out what it is about you that makes you important to others.
I often get this question, Nita, so I'm going to pose it to you. How do you take that journey? How do you find out what your why is? How did you do it? What were the steps you took? And you mentioned earlier that up and down that windy road. And I feel like that's typically my answer, right? But
Mhm.
what was your journey like to find out what really sparked that fire inside of you that said, "No, this is my purpose." What was
Yeah.
that journey like?
It's funny because it's not like I established that purpose and then went forward in my life. I think it's upon kind of reflection and looking in a rear view to figure out, like, kind of to pull those dots together, I guess, and to figure out why I did certain things that I did and what were some of those meaningful points in my life or those impactful points in my life and career. And is there a through line, that connects them? Is there something that is common to all of those major life events, um, or something that I can draw a connection to better understand and define through self-reflection what that purpose is? And I was very, very blessed and grateful about an opportunity that I had during the pandemic, as a part of a women's leadership program, that I was selected to be a part of, where it was actually an exercise. It was a year long program that I was with, I think it was 29 or 30 other female leaders here across like the Thomson Reuters business. And really just a phenomenal program that I got to be a part of. Part of that journey or that program was to do that type of reflection. It was really a time that was provided to us to look back on our lives and career and map that all out and figure out what that through line was. And I will say, I took the time to do it. I really invested myself in it. And I'm so happy that I did, because I think it gave me direction for this sort of second part of my career and my life to figure out what it is that is really meaningful to me. But I can even pinpoint a moment for you where I had to write myself, as a part of this program, I had to write myself a letter from 3 years in the future. And, what did I want to say to myself? And what was so interesting was, like, I had this kind of eat, pray, love moment where I was struggling writing this letter to myself. I didn't know what I wanted to say. And I remember I went into my bathroom. I went into my bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I was like, get it together, Nita. Like, what is it you want? What is important to you? What is it that, like, how do you want to define yourself? How do you want people to kind of look back at you in your life? And, like, what do you want them to say? Do you want them to say that you were just this, like, great person at sales and, like, that you could create a great business network? I mean, maybe that's part of who I am, but it's not like how I really want to be remembered, like, I kind of thought about it in terms of, like, what do I want people to say about the impact that I had on them?
Mm,
And then I started to connect it back. I think my why, my personal, is in everything that I've ever done, how do I make myself and the others around me better?
mm,
And you apply that to, like, okay, in my career, I'm helping people to figure out how to do their jobs better. How do they contribute better to the legal profession, because that's the industry that I'm in, right? How do they contribute more to the world in that respect? But also then I was thinking about, it's also how I parent, right? I want my boys, my two young boys who are now 14 and 10, how do I give them the tools or lead by example so that they can live sort of a better, happier, more holistic life? How do I show up that way as a wife or as a friend or as a confidant or as a colleague or whatever the case may be? Like that's my through line, if
Mm,
that makes any sense. So I
absolutely.
think that's to give you a little bit of, insight into that journey for me and how I discovered it. It was going through that process of like really looking myself in the mirror, saying what's important to you, and then backtracking and saying what were the common points.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes complete sense. And I think what comes to mind is this counterintuitive executive mindset, leader mindset, though, that reflection actually is something we have to do so stinking intentionally in today's world that we have to actually say to ourselves, no, reflection, self-development, looking
Mhm,
ourselves in the mirror and really challenging ourselves not only takes intention, it takes a shit ton of courage, Nita,
mhm,
because oftentimes we're running the hamster wheel. We're trying to hit goals. We have the
mhm.
to-do list that never ends. And so
Yep.
to take time and reflection is a get it together. You can't take time off. That's
Mhm,
insane. But in order actually to propel us forward, it sounds like, and truly find our why, it takes that courage,
mhm,
that intention that you took through COVID, but also what sounds like through your life.
mhm.
You've been that way. You've been that way. Yeah,
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 yeah. I don't. I said to myself, I'm gonna say this during our time because I will never forget that 7 years ago when we met on a
yes.
work call where
Mhm.
we were coming to the table as negotiators. Let's call it what it is, and we talked wellness on our
Yes.
first call as I sat in airport. I believe it was a Miami International, um, buzzing around, and you showed up. I showed up. We showed up completely authentic to ourselves, and we talked wellness.
Mhm.
Tell me more about this director of well-being. Director of well-being. Here you are. You have arrived.
Yes. So, this was sort of something that I think I came to honestly because of the journey, that I just kind of explained to you. It's something that I've always been very passionate about is health and well-being. And like I said, what I kind of attribute every success I've ever had or along this journey to that commitment. Um, in what I started noticing is that yes, you and I kind of were early adopters, maybe I should say, and that like we had this conversation 7 years ago, but it has been evolving in society as a larger topic of conversation, of priority, of attention point, for many years, even pre-COVID, right? Even pre-pandemic. So, I like to kind of tease and say I was somewhat kind of prophetic about the way that things were going, that there was this sort of bend for well-being and culture and new expectations and standards, all along. We never could have predicted a global pandemic, but what it did do is it accelerated the degree of attention to this, and it shone a light in a totally different way. So it gave me then an opportunity within the day job, right, that I have, or the role that I have at Thomson Reuters, to say, hey, I'm starting to recognize that this is a topic of conversation that's coming up with every law firm leader that I have or that I meet with. And it's no longer just kind of a brief initiative that they've got working on. And I'm very mindful and intentional, by the way, of saying well-being as opposed to wellness. And I'll explain why, because I think that the association of wellness is like, taking biometrics, or one of my friends says, removing salt off the tables, or going and getting your physical. Well-being is much more holistic. It is the mental, the physical, the spiritual. It encompasses, the whole biopsychosocial model, and how like the workplace impacts your well-being. It's not just the the tasks that you take on upon yourself to kind of make yourself well. It's like, how does the world around you kind of contribute to that? So it's a holistic approach. So anyway, going back to what I was saying before, it gave me an opportunity, I guess, the pandemic, because it has become such a strategic priority for leaders, corporate leaders, law firm leaders, of late, to go to my leadership team and to say, hey, this is a way that I'd like to explore, um, offering that kind of strategic guidance or advice, or partnering with our most strategic clients in this way that is so impactful to their business. And what is our purpose at Thomson Reuters? It is to inform the way forward with our data, with our insights, with our technology. If this is a key area of strategic priority for our clients, we need to be helping to inform the way forward in that area. So let me help like build this up and explore this with our strategic clients. And oh, by the way, in order for us to do that authentically, we have to be doing it ourselves internally, within TR. So this role that was sort of that we've come up with, and that, I really have so much respect and gratitude for the leadership team here at TR that not only gave me this opportunity, but saw it as imperative to give this opportunity, was to give me a chance not only to work with clients, but to say, how do we build this up authentically within TR, and to build that strategy in line with, what the larger HR benefits and, big engine that supports Thomson Reuters does. How do we do this in this global large law firm segment? So I'm helping to build that strategy both internally and externally, and I love everything about it.
What comes to mind is be the change you want to see in the world. And you've taken that concept and expanded it from an individualistic standpoint to an organizational standpoint, which is a cultural shift, which is not only profound, but real change happens when cultural shift changes. And,
Yes.
and that's when real change only truly happens, really. Because yes, you can have a few individuals and you can have investment or infusion of dollars, but if you don't have the people along the journey with you on that change, whatever that change might be, it's simply an initiative
Yes.
versus a true change.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, this is Nita. I have so many questions, if you can imagine, but just I'm inspired myself, because not only have you taken on that embodiment of what it truly means to be a human human being, not a human doing, bringing that holistic flair to it. Because I do remember when wellness began in the
Yes.
company I'm with now at HBR. It was about getting on a treadmill or a step challenge. It was one dimensional. But over the years, this awareness, this knowledge that well-being is far more than just a part of it is the physical body, but it is a triage, if not four pillar, that holds our well-being up: the body, mind, heart, and soul. Whatever we want to define that to be as individuals, there is a more holistic look here.
Yes.
How in your journey have you been able to bring along what I can only imagine as skeptics or naysayers along with you? Or how are you able to bring that forth in such a huge organization like Thomson Reuters, but what do you feel is your ability to not only be change, but to embody and then influence change? How has that worked for you?
So I kind of think about it this way. I mean, you know that I'm going to answer your question, hopefully not in too roundabout a way, but you made me think of a couple of different things when you asked it. So I have a podcast and I co-host a podcast that is called Practice Wellbeing, and it's a well-being and performance podcast. And I specifically want to point that out because it is in that way that I think I have been attempting to reframe the fluffiness. I hate even using that word, but I'm using it because that's how people perceive it still. The fluffiness around well being, that it really is how you optimize and sustain performance. So if you want your people to be doing the best work for you as an organization and to be making as meaningful a contribution as possible, both for themselves and for the organization, to drive results, they need to be well. They need to be well, holistically well, physically, psychologically, socially well. That is how you optimize their ability to perform for you. And oh, by the way, it makes them happier. And oh, by the way, it makes them more loyal to you. So then all of those benefits that you gain by them performing at their highest level, you're also getting the benefit of them not leaving you. So those attrition costs, or engaging in presenteeism or absenteeism, within the organization. So I think about it really from a performance standpoint. How are you optimizing your people who are your greatest asset in the organization to do their best work for you, for society, for themselves, for your clients, everybody?
And I mean, you hit the nail on the head for me as well, where I was seeing this, and I'm such a visual. So I see this bridge that is broken in the middle, where the perception that well-being is fluffy, and lower on the list when it comes to corporate goals, when
Mhm.
in reality that bridge actually needs a few more planks in there, because in order for a organization to not only be sustainable, but to be top notch, to be cutting edge, to be full of thought leaders, and all that an organization really aspires to be, those planks of well-being have to be laid down as well, because to the sheer fact that
Yes.
today our greatest asset is still people. And until that ever changes,
And
this
it won't ever
narrative,
change.
bingo, bingo.
It won't ever change. It
Yes.
will never change because no matter how much technology, automation, whatever you put in place to kind of like make things run really, really efficiently, you cannot replace those things that require the human element of for innovation. Like you have to be empathetic, you have to be creative, you have to be open to new ideas, you have to connect to those ideas. And if you're not optimizing a human's ability to do that, you limit your opportunity to innovate and create a sustainable future.
Yes, yes. And the reality is, I would challenge that by also saying that as we build out automation and AI and technology, the human element has to stay a few steps ahead. And therefore, well being is even more important now than ever before, because we also can't get lost in our own way, in our own
Yes.
creations, right? That we
Yes.
have to stay ahead. And the only way to do that is to be well in all aspects of well-being.
So I'll give you another interesting thing since we both work in the legal industry. and, serve clients in this space. I don't know if this was like a validating thing or if I just like was so pleased as punch to hear this, but in the last month, I have had multiple conversations with law firm leaders, like chief operating officer, chair, like that level of leadership within the firm. And not just one or two, multiple firms have identified that one of their strategic pillars is a pillar of well-being within the firm. And oh, by the way, to go to your bridge example with the planks, it's not only like one of the things that holds up the bridge. I'm not an architect, so I don't know what it is, but like
I get it.
the,
I see it.
the standing wall or whatever, the load bearing plank. Not only is it one of those, but it is also the through line for every other strategic initiative that you have, because your people are the through line for every other strategic initiative you have, whether it's some kind of business development initiative or, driving growth, whatever that may be, your people are the through line for it. So well-being is not only foundational, it is also in and of itself something that you need to support with intentionality.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, pre-COVID, all to your point, all the data was out there on mental issues, diseases, health concerns amongst attorneys by the American Bar Association. Tons of studies, data to show substance abuse challenges and at a critical level for this industry. COVID, I believe, made us all sit back for that moment of reflection, whether we were ready or not, willing or not. We all had to, because we were all bunkered down, locked down, quarantined. And so for even those folks that weren't ready for reflection, it did call upon reflection on everyone. And the time is here, the ground swelling has happened, and we do have to face what has been in front of us for way too long now, right? Way too long now. And it sounds like you're hearing that awareness is there. And I always like to say, with awareness, the battle is half done and half won, because with awareness, it's that acknowledgement that something exists that we can't ignore anymore. And once we have our eyes open, we're willing to find the solutions, or at least come together and work collaboratively towards a solution. We are halfway there, which is wonderful to hear.
Totally agree.
It makes our hearts smile, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, I want to loop all the way back on intentional leadership, which, by the way, intentional leadership, the only way to get to an awareness of one's reason why, which is purpose, has a lot to do with wellness. So a pillar under intentional leadership is that wellness pillar as well. So I just want to leave everyone with your words of guidance, wisdom on this element of finding one's purpose with well-being at the core. What would your leave behinds be to the intentional leaders that have checked in today to hear about how one even embraces well-being, not only just for oneself, but for the legal industry? What would be your words of wisdom?
I mean, I think for me, I really think about this as a question around sustainability, right? And how are you setting up the future of your organization for your people? And when we think about sustainability, or we often use, the acronym ESG, and that's like a hot buzz topic right now. The thing is that sustainability extends far beyond the bounds of climate and planet. It's about resilience holistically. And I've said this many, many times before in other forums, but it's about the resilience of the business and and leaders asking themselves, what is the sustainability strategy of the business? And I think that requires a transformation. And it requires an understanding of what our role is in the world, to go back to that conversation around purpose. So what's the role of the organization? And then it's about arming the greatest asset of that organization, which is the people, to develop their skills, to develop their talent, to develop their leadership, and to develop their contribution to the culture of the organization, so that they can help that organization to deliver upon its purpose and upon its strategy. And I think that investing in well-being and investing in the well-being of your people is investing in resilience and sustainability by addressing the critical issues that affect their health in all forms. So I think about it that way, about what is the long-term impact that you as a leader are making, and how are you empowering others to make that impact? Because the impact is not just by one, it's by all.
And what I'm sensing too is that this word, concept, and notion, sustainability, I think that also needs a new wrapper around, which is mission critical. Because oftentimes when we say sustainability and long term, people think, oh, that's 5 years from now, that's 10. I'm not going to be around for that. But the reality on the speed of change and and where we are as a human race is that this definition of sustainability is mission critical in 2022. Mission critical. It's time.
Yes.
It's time.
Yes.
It's time. Oh, Nita, it's always a pleasure. And if you all are checking in, even if you're not in the legal industry, you have to check out Practice Wellbeing with Nita and Becky, because it is not only inspiring, motivating, and feeds your own well-being, but will feed the well-being of everyone you love around you and those you work with. So please do check that amazing podcast out. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Nita, here at the Intentional Leadership Podcast. Really looking forward to looking back 7 years from now,
yes.
and having this chat with you again throughout that journey. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. And how far we will have come, 7 years from now. I can only wait.
Only wait. Yep. Can't even imagine what is to bloom 7 years from now.
Exactly.
Thank you again. Thank you again
so much.
Love you lots. Keep
too.
shining bright. All right.
You too. Okay.
Well, now that's a healthy dose of empowerment. Until next time, be empowered.